If you ask me where to start, from the ring, from the graduation ceremony, or from the first time Blaine touched my hand in the noisy hallway, I would say, it all began with a rumor. In my sophomore year of college, I was a communications major at a large public university in California. The campus was vast, lined with tall palm trees, and bathed in golden sunlight that made everything feel like it was part of some coming-of-age movie. I had a pretty peaceful life, going to classes, working part-time at the library, occasionally strumming my guitar in the dorm room. I wasn't standout. I didn't want to be, until Blaine came along. Blaine transferred into my class mid-fall semester. He was tall, with dark brown hair and green eyes that always seemed to hold a secret. He was majoring in economics but had to take some general education classes with me. On his first day, he sat next to me because it was the last empty seat. We didn't talk much, just a polite hello. But at the end of class, as I was packing up my laptop, he turned to me and asked, "Can you send me your lecture notes? I got here too late." His voice was deep and a bit husky. Not the kind that knocks you off your feet right away, but the kind you remember. I sent them to him. That evening, Blaine texted me a thank you. Then he asked a few questions about the homework. Then about the professor. Then about me. I don't know when our conversations about schoolwork turned into 2 a.m. texts about indie music, post-graduation dreams, growing up in a small town and feeling like you didn't belong there. Blaine grew up in Texas. I grew up in Oregon. Both of us left home with a vague desire to live authentically. But living authentically in America, even in open-minded California, wasn't always straightforward. Blaine's family was very strict religiously. Mine wasn't overly conservative, but they weren't the type to pop champagne if their son brought home another guy. We never said it outright at first, but in the pauses between texts, in the lingering eye contact that lasted longer than normal, I knew, and I think Blaine knew too. The rumor started on a Friday afternoon. We were sitting together at a campus coffee shop. I was reading a script for a presentation, and Blaine was pretending to read a book but really just staring at me. "I'm actually reading," he said when he caught me looking back. "Yeah, reading by staring at me?" He laughed, and then, very naturally, his hand touched my wrist on the table. Not a firm grip, just a touch, light, warm. A girl at the next table saw it. The next day, I heard 2 people in class whispering as I walked in. They went silent when they saw me. Someone else asked outright, "Emery, you and Blaine? Is it real?" "Real what?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "You know." I didn't answer, but my heart was pounding. That afternoon, I confronted Blaine in his dorm room. "They're talking about us," I said. "Us?" He repeated, his eyes not avoiding mine. "You know what I mean." There was a pause. The room was filled only with the steady hum of the air conditioner. "So, Emery," Blaine stepped a little closer to me, "what do you want them to say?" I didn't have a perfect answer. I just knew that when he was that close, everything in me softened. I dated girls before. I tried to convince myself I was just curious. But with Blaine, there was no curiosity, just a terrifying certainty. "I don't want you to get hurt because of me," I said softly. He smiled sadly. "I've been hurt for a long time, Emery. Not because of you, because I have to pretend." I saw something in his eyes then, a weariness, a longing to breathe, and I did the boldest thing of my life. I reached up and touched Blaine's cheek. "No trembling, no hesitation. If they want a story," I whispered, "then let's give them a real one." Blaine didn't speak. He just pulled me closer. Our first kiss wasn't intense. It was slow, a bit awkward, but full of confirmation, like 2 young men finally stopping running from themselves. The next day, the rumor was no longer just a rumor. We didn't hold hands across campus. We didn't post pictures on Instagram, but we didn't deny it either. When someone asked, I just shrugged. When someone sneered, Blaine stared them down until they looked away. Not everyone was supportive. There were uncomfortable stares, a few sarcastic comments in class. Once, someone wrote on the board before lecture, "Be our romance or more?" I erased it before the professor came in. That night, I lay on Blaine's bed, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Do you regret it?" I asked. "No," Blaine answered immediately. "You?" I looked up at him. The yellow lamp light in the room made his eyes look softer, more vulnerable. "I'm scared," I admitted, "but I've never felt so right." He kissed my forehead. "Then we'll keep going. One day at a time." I didn't know then that the rumor was just the beginning. That ahead of us were family, graduation, jobs, distance, and a ring I never thought I'd dare to buy. But that evening, in the tiny dorm room, I knew one thing for sure. I loved Blaine, and for the first time in my life, I didn't want to deny it. Spring that year came faster than I imagined. The campus was flooded with purple jacaranda flowers. Students started talking about summer internships, GPAs, the future as if it was standing right outside the dorm door. For me, the future at that time had only one shape: Blaine. But love in college wasn't just stolen kisses in private rooms or study sessions that turned into clumsy hand touches. It was also facing the world. The rumor didn't disappear. It just changed colors. At first, curiosity, then factions. A group of friends in my communications class started being extra friendly. They invited me to Pride in San Francisco. They called me brave. I wasn't sure if I was brave. I just knew I was tired of pretending. But there were others. One evening, as Blaine and I left the gym, two guys from the basketball team walked by. One whistled. The other said loud enough for us to hear, "Texas boy fell hard, huh?" I saw Blaine freeze, not out of fear, out of anger. I grabbed his hand without thinking, right in the middle of the parking lot. "Come on," I said. He looked down at our intertwined hands. The yellow lights cast shadows on his face, highlighting his clenched jaw. "You don't have to do that," Blaine said softly. "I know," I replied. "I want to." We walked past them like that. No more words. But that night, in Blaine's room, he kissed me like he was affirming something. Not to them, but to himself. "Emery," he whispered between hurried breaths. "I've spent nearly 20 years being the version my family wanted. I don't want to do that anymore." I ran my hand through his hair. "Then don't." He chuckled softly. "Easier said than done." "No." I shook my head. "Loving me isn't easy." Blaine looked at me, his eyes softening. "Not easy, but worth it." We officially came out to our close friends at the end of that semester. Not a long post, not a big announcement. Just a photo of us sitting close at an outdoor music festival. Shoulders touching, eyes on each other instead of the camera. Caption: just one word: us. The reactions came faster than I expected. My mom called that evening. "Emery." Her voice was calm to the point of being scary. "That photo, Mom needs you to explain." I sat on the bed, Blaine beside me, his hand on my back like an anchor. "I'm dating Blaine," I said. No beating around the bush. The silence on the other end stretched. I could hear the wall clock in my family's living room, thousands of miles away. "Are you sure?" Mom asked. "I've never been surer." She sighed. "Mom needs time." I nodded even though she couldn't see. I needed time too. The call ended quietly, but not lightly. Blaine pulled me into his arms as soon as I hung up. "My parents won't just need time," he said, his voice dropping. "They'll see it as a failure." "Whose?" I asked. "Theirs." "Mine." "God's." He smiled faintly. "Blaine." I placed my hand on his cheek. "You're not a mistake." He looked at me for a long time, as if trying to memorize every feature of my face. "You make me believe that," he whispered. Summer came and we faced our first challenge. Separation. I got an internship at a TV production company in Los Angeles. Blaine stayed near campus to work for a finance startup. 2 cities, 6 hours drive apart. "Just 3 months," I said as we packed. 3 months can change a lot," Blaine replied. I didn't want to believe that. The first weeks in LA, I was swept up in work. Studio lights, constant script revisions, idea pitches. I was excited, exhausted, and missed Blaine so much my chest ached. We FaceTimed every night. Some nights just 5 minutes because I was drained. Others stretched to 2 hours just staring at each other through the screen. One night, I saw Blaine's eyes were red. "What's wrong?" I asked. He shook his head. "My dad knows." My heart dropped. "What did he say?" "He said I'm destroying my future. That no serious company wants someone like me." I gripped the phone. "Someone like you how?" "Gay." The word came out of his mouth like an unstitched wound. I took a deep breath. "You're doing great work. You're smart. You're hardworking. No one can take that from you. But he can take me from the family." That sentence silenced me. We were quiet for a long time, just the hum of air conditioners from 2 different cities. "Blaine," I said finally, "if one day you have to choose between me and them—" "Don't," he interrupted. "Don't make me imagine that. I don't want you to lose your family because of me." He looked straight at the screen. "And I don't want to lose myself because of them. Those 3 months didn't destroy us, but they made us grow." When I returned to campus for senior year, Blaine picked me up at the airport. He looked thinner, more mature. And when we hugged in the crowd, I realized one thing. Love isn't just emotion. It's a choice repeated every day. We had 1 more year before graduation. 1 year to decide if us could exist beyond the campus. I didn't know then that final year would lead us to a tear-filled graduation ceremony and a decision that changed my life forever. Senior year of college has its own distinct smell. Stronger coffee because we slept less. Printed thesis papers. Fear mixed with excitement about real life. And for me, it also had the familiar scent of Blaine's cologne every time he leaned down to kiss my neck before I left the room in the morning. We moved out of the dorms and rented a small apartment off campus. Not big, not fancy, but ours. The first time I woke up and saw sunlight filtering through the curtains, illuminating Blaine's sleeping face next to me, I understood what home felt like. Not a place, person. But living together was completely different from dating in the best moments of college.
I'm messy.
Blaine likes everything tidy. I leave coffee mugs everywhere. He hates that.
I'm emotional.
He tends to withdraw when stressed. There were evenings we argued over silly things. "Emery, can you at least wash the dishes right after eating?" Blaine said, hands on hips. "Can you at least not act like I just committed a major crime?" I shot back. We went silent, the air heavier than it should be. But then Blaine sighed, stepped closer to me. "I'm not mad about the dishes. I'm mad because I'm stressed, and I don't know how to say it." "Work?" I asked. He nodded. The startup where Blaine interned was considering hiring him full-time after graduation. But that meant he might have to move to New York. And me? I'd just gotten a job offer in Los Angeles. A production company wanted me as a script assistant postgrad. 2 cities, 2 dreams, 1 love. We avoided talking about it for weeks, as if not mentioning it would make it non-existent. But then one April evening, as we sat on the living room floor amid graduation documents, Blaine set his folder down. "We need to talk." I hated that phrase. "Yeah," I replied, heart racing. He looked at me, more serious than I'd ever seen. "If I take the job in New York and you go to LA, what do we do?" I swallowed hard. "Long distance." "For how long?" "I don't know." "Emery." His voice softened. "I don't want us to just exist through phone screens." I looked down at my hands. "You want me to give up LA?"
No.
He shook his head immediately. "I love that you write. I love how your eyes light up when you talk about scripts. I don't want to be the one who makes you shrink." "Then what do you want?" "I want us to choose each other, but not by sacrificing ourselves." That sentence made me love him more and fear more. We didn't decide that night, but from that moment, everything had an invisible layer of pressure. Graduation came as fast as a deep breath. The stadium was packed. Families flew in from everywhere. My mom sat in the stands, her eyes on me no longer doubtful like before. Not fully understanding, but not turning away. Blaine's parents came too. I saw them from afar, dressed impeccably, ice cold. After the ceremony, amid hugs and photos, Blaine led me to them. "Mom, Dad, this is Emery." I extended my hand. His dad shook it, just firm enough to remind me he wasn't pleased. His mom only nodded. "We've heard a lot about you," she said. Not warmly. "All good, I hope?" I tried to smile. Blaine squeezed my hand lightly. "My son has great potential," his dad said. "I just hope he doesn't let personal choices derail him." The air thickened. I was about to respond, but Blaine spoke first. "Dad, I'm not derailed. I'm just following my own path." It was the first time I'd seen him speak so directly to his family. His dad didn't reply. He turned away. That evening, after both families had left, Blaine and I sat alone in the empty stands. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, but his eyes were red. "I always thought graduation day would be perfect," he said. "But maybe growing up isn't about perfection. It's about accepting imperfection." I rested my head on his shoulder. "What do we do now?" I asked. Blaine pulled 2 envelopes from his jacket pocket. "I'm officially hired in New York." My heart tightened. "Me too," I said softly. "LA wants me to start in July." We looked at each other. No longer students. No longer boys who could hide in a dorm room. 3,000 miles, Blaine said. "But still us," I replied. He took a deep breath. "Emery, I don't want to lose you." "You won't." But deep down, for the first time, I wasn't sure. I didn't know then that distance wasn't the hardest thing waiting for us. That there were misunderstandings, silent hurts, and a decision I'd make in desperation. And years later, looking back, I'd understand that from the sophomore rumor to the ring in my suit pocket. It was all a journey to learn how not to let go. But at that moment, we were just 2 new graduates, facing 2 different cities, trying to believe love was big enough to bridge them. We started long distance in July. I moved to a tiny studio in Silver Lake, Los Angeles. White walls, old wood floors, window overlooking a street always buzzing with cars. I placed the only photo frame I brought. A graduation shot, Blaine behind me, chin lightly on my shoulder, on my desk. Blaine moved to Brooklyn, renting a room in a 3-person apartment. That city swallowed him into its frantic pace. The photos he sent were full of subways, skyscrapers, finance bars where colleagues gathered. We scheduled longer video calls every Sunday night. Weekdays depended on work schedules. The first month, we tried to act strong. "I'm fine," Blaine said when I asked about work. "Me too," I replied. But the truth was, I was drowning in a cutthroat environment. At the production company, I was just a script assistant, editor, coffee runner, last one out. I loved the job, but it drained all my energy. Some nights I fell asleep at my desk. Some mornings I woke to Blaine's 2 a.m. LA time texts that I hadn't replied to. Blaine changed too. Not in a bad way. Just growing up faster. He started wearing suits more. Talking about investor meetings. Stocks. Financial futures. I listened, proud, but sometimes felt like I was outside a world I didn't understand. One October evening, we had our first fight over video. "I'm just saying you could consider moving to New York," Blaine said, voice tired. "There are bigger media companies here." "You're telling me to give up my opportunity in LA?" I asked. "I'm telling you I miss you. I miss you too." "Then why am I always the one bringing up meeting?" That question hit me hard. "I'm trying to keep this job, Blaine. I can't just take off and fly back and forth every month." "I'm trying to keep my job too," he shot back. "But I've flown to LA twice already." I went silent. He was right. After a tense few seconds, Blaine softened his voice. "Emery, I don't want us to become 2 people who only exist on a schedule." I looked at the screen, seeing my faint reflection. I don't know what else to do. We ended the call without our usual goodnight kiss. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering for the first time, is love enough? Distance wasn't just geographic. It was time, pace of life, the new versions of us forming on opposite coasts. In December, I flew to New York for the holidays. Blaine picked me up at JFK, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. "I hate fighting with you," he whispered into my neck. "Me too." We spent the first 3 days making up for all the missed times. Walking in the cold, hands linked in coat pockets. Laughing more than talking. Kissing in Blaine's small room when his roommates were out. But on the 4th day, reality intruded. We were having dinner when Blaine's phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from his boss. Project issue. I have to stop by the office for a bit, he said, apologetic. Now? I asked. Just an hour. I nodded. But 1 hour turned into 3. When he got back, I was asleep on the couch. Emery, he gently shook me. I opened my eyes, more tired than angry. It's okay. But inside, something cracked. The day I left New York, we stood at security, hands clenched. I love you, Blaine said. I know, I replied. I love you too. But for the first time, the words didn't chase away the worry. Early the next year, everything reached a peak. I was offered to lead writing on a new project, the biggest opportunity yet. But it required committing to LA for at least 2 more years. The same week, Blaine got promoted. With the condition to move up to management, he had to stay in New York long-term. We talked on the phone for 2 hours. Maybe. Blaine started, then stopped. Maybe what? Maybe we're trying to hold on to something that doesn't fit our lives anymore. My heart stopped for a second. You're saying break up? I'm saying, I don't want us to start resenting each other because of the distance. I stood up from the chair, pacing the small apartment. So all we've been through, just to end like this? Emery, I still love you. But not enough? He closed his eyes. I saw it through the screen. I don't know. We decided to pause. Not a full breakup. Just stop pressuring each other. No nightly calls. No promises about the future. I thought I'd feel free. Instead, I felt empty. The weeks after were the longest of my life. I threw myself into work, writing until my hands shook, trying to prove to myself I was okay. But every time I came home to the apartment, looking at the photo frame on the desk, I wondered, from the sophomore rumor to here, how far had we come, and where were we now? I didn't know that in this silence, I'd learned the most important thing about love. And I didn't know that a few months later, I'd stand in a jewelry store in Los Angeles, looking at a ring, thinking of Blaine. Pause sounds gentle, but for me it was like being deprived of oxygen. We didn't officially break up. No one said the word. But gone were the nightly calls, the regular goodnight texts, the countdown plans to the next meeting. Just polite silence. I hope you're okay. How's work? Congrats on the new project. Harmless words. No more intimacy. No more I miss you, slipping out between breaths. I hated that calm version of myself. I poured all my energy into work. The new project succeeded beyond expectations. The script I helped write went into production. For the first time, my name appeared in the end credits. People patted my back. Boss said I had a future. Colleagues invited me to celebrate. I smiled. I drank. I chatted. But when I got home to the apartment, I still looked at the photo frame on the desk. Some nights I picked up the phone, opened the chat with Blaine, typed a long message, then deleted it. I wondered, if love requires constant sacrifice from both, is it still healthy love? 3 months passed. One June evening, I got an unusual text from Blaine. Emery, I'll be in LA next week for work. If you want, we can meet. My heart pounded so hard I had to sit down. I want to, I replied immediately. We agreed to meet at a small bar in downtown Neutral, not my apartment, not his hotel. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize Blaine. Not because he'd changed completely, but because he looked tired, more mature, but also more weary. We stood facing each other for a few seconds, like two strangers trying to remember how to touch. I missed you, Blaine said first. I smiled faintly. Me too. We sat down, ordered drinks, talked about work, the city, safe things. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. What are we doing? I asked. Blaine looked down at his glass. I don't want to force you to choose me over your career. I've never seen you as a choice to give up. But the reality is we're living 2 different lives. So what's the solution? Become strangers. My voice trembled. I hated it but couldn't control it. Blaine looked at me, his eyes softening like back in our college apartment. I'm scared, he admitted. I'm scared one day we'll realize we're only together because of too many memories. I took a deep breath. And I'm scared one day I'll look back and realize I let the only person who makes me feel like myself go. The silence stretched. Then Blaine said something I didn't expect. I've talked to my parents again. I froze. And they still don't understand. But they're not cutting me off anymore. He smiled tiredly. Maybe they're learning how not to lose their son too. I nodded. I'm proud of you. He looked at me for a long time. Emery, I don't want to pause anymore. Either we end it for real, or we do this seriously. What does seriously mean? He took a deep breath. One of us has to move. My heart pounded. I've thought a lot, Blaine continued. My position allows remote work a few months a year. If I negotiate, I could move to LA long-term. I was stunned. You would leave New York? If you still want me? That question tightened my chest. I've never stopped wanting you. We didn't kiss in the bar. Nothing dramatic. Just two hands finding each other on the table, gripping tighter than before. 3 months later, Blaine moved to Los Angeles. Not out of sacrifice. Out of choice. We rented a bigger apartment, this time signing the lease together. No more temporary feel. One evening, as we assembled a new bookshelf, Blaine looked at me and smiled. You know, he said, everything started with a rumor. I laughed. And now we're arguing about where to put the sofa. Big progress. I looked at him, our eyes meeting like that first day in the coffee shop sophomore year. Distance, family, careers all had tested us. But what remained wasn't exhaustion. It was repeated choice. A few weeks later, I walked into a jewelry store on Melrose. No specific plan. Just an urging thought. The salesperson showed a few ring samples. Simple. Elegant. Not flashy. I picked one up. Thin silver band with a small diamond. I imagined it on Blaine's hand. I imagined the day we'd tell everyone not we're dating, but we've chosen each other for life. I wasn't sure I was ready, but I knew one thing. From the sophomore rumor, we'd been through too much to fear one more step. I bought the ring, and as I left the store, the small box snug in my coat pocket, my heart raced like the day I first touched Blaine's cheek. I didn't know exactly when I'd propose, but I knew I would. The ring sat in my desk drawer for 3 weeks. 3 horribly long weeks. I'd never kept such a big secret from Blaine. We'd been through enough hurt from lack of communication. So hiding something important made me both excited and anxious. Some evenings, while Blaine was showering, I'd open the drawer, take out the small box, flip it open, watch the tiny stone sparkle under the yellow light. Not too big, not flashy, but refined. Just enough. Like us. I didn't want to propose in a flashy way. No flasmab. No kneeling in a crowded restaurant. I wanted the moment to be ours, like the first handhold in the parking lot, like the kiss in the dorm room. In September, LA's sun started to soften. One Sunday afternoon, I suggested to Blaine we drive up to Malibu, to a cliff overlooking the Pacific. Something up? Blaine asked as I drove. No, I said, trying to sound normal. Just, we haven't gone anywhere alone in a while. He looked at me, eyes a mix of suspicion and affection. You're planning something. I'm always planning. I smiled. We parked, walked a short path to the cliff. The sea wind blew strong, carrying salt and the sound of crashing waves. The sun began to set. The sky turned orange-pink. We sat down, shoulders touching. Emery, Blaine said softly, I used to think if I ever got this happy, something bad would happen right after. I turned to him. And now, I'm learning not to wait for disaster. That sentence choked me up. Me too, I said. We were silent, just the wind. I thought about it all. About sophomore year. About the rumor. About his dad's cold handshake at graduation. About tear-filled FaceTimes. About the pause that almost ended everything. And about how, despite it all, Blaine was still sitting beside me. I took a deep breath. Blaine, He turned. Yeah, I have a question. He smiled lightly. Sounds dangerous. I stood up. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. You remember the first time we talked about the rumor? I asked. In my dorm room. I said, if they want a story, then let's give them a real one. Blaine looked at me, his eyes starting to change. Realizing something, I knelt down. The sea wind blew harder. I almost laughed because my hands shook so much I had to open the ring box twice. Blaine stood frozen. Emery, I don't promise everything will always be easy, I said, voice trembling but clear. We already know that. We've tried distance, tried silence, tried living like we didn't need each other. I swallowed hard. But every time, I come back to one truth. I want to build my life with you. Not because I'm afraid of losing you. Because I choose you. I opened the box. The sunset reflected off the small stone. Blaine, I said, looking straight into his eyes. Do you want to keep writing this story with me? For the rest of our lives? I'd never seen Blaine cry so much. He covered his mouth with his hand, then shook his head like he couldn't believe it. You really? He choked up. I really do. 1 second. 2 seconds. As long as a lifetime. Then Blaine knelt down in front of me, eye level. I've loved you since you sent me those first lecture notes, he said through tears. And I've never stopped loving you. Yes. 1,000 times yes. I laughed, tears falling too. I slipped the ring on his finger. Perfect fit. Blaine pulled me into a kiss. Not rushed, not showy, but deep and certain like our decision. The sun set behind us. Waves crashed below the cliff. No audience.
No applause.
Just two men who were once each other's rumor, and now each other's promise. That night, as we lay in bed, Blaine turned to look at me. You know, he whispered, from rumor to ring, we've come a long way. I smiled, touching my forehead to his, an old habit from college days. And I don't regret a single step. Blaine held me tighter. Neither do I. If you ask me the most important thing I've learned, I'd say, love doesn't appear perfect. It starts from small things. A touch, a rumor, a dare to admit. And it endures when two people decide, time after time, that they don't want to live without each other. We're still writing our story. But the ring on Blaine's finger every morning is a reminder that, no matter how noisy the world, no matter how careers pull us in different directions, we've chosen each other. And this time, not in silence,